Good evening, good morning. I don't know when you're watching this. I just finished Kiss of the Basilisk all of 5 seconds ago, so I figured I would sit down and record this video and give my full thoughts, reviews. If you don't know, I'm PBSquamer. I read dark romance books as a guy, which is a pretty rare thing. So, I thought I would give you my review of Kiss of the Basilisk. We're going to bring out the notes. I will admit, I don't think it's dark romance. I think it's just the smuttiest, sluttiest, most porn book I have ever read. Like there's more. If you can't tell by the name, it's right there. It says the Spit or Swallow novel. That was Split or Swallow novel. It was the original name of this book. It is that level of smut. It, let's just. I don't want to say it was a bad book because I don't think that's true. I think it is if you go into it thinking there is no plot line. The plot line is so slim. And if you go in thinking that, then you're like, I just want it for the snake smut. Then that's what it is. It's like 24 hours of an audiobook if you listen at normal speed. I didn't listen at like 2.75 to 3 depending on the scene. But it's like 24 hours of, and I would say 22 of it is smut and 2 hours of it is story. So it is the smuttiest. Just when you think they're not going to do it again, they do. And on top of the fact that there's so much sex in this book, sex is like a pivotal part of the plot line itself. Like, it's insane. I keep thinking, oh, there's not going to be more sex. And then every time I was wrong. Every single time I was like, oh, there's more. But that being said, I don't think it's a bad book. I think if you go in and you're like, I want to read a book about porn for 22 straight hours equivalencies, then this is a good book. It was well written. I think it could be bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it could be this much smut and be a bad book, but I don't think it is. I think if this is what you want to read, it's a good book. So that's what I'm going to start with. Is there a lot of plot? No. Is there any crazy twists? Not really. Even the twists that were like twisty, I was like, yeah, I saw that coming. Or I was like so caught up in the porn that I was like, oh, okay. So that's the book. Let's get into what the book is. So if you haven't read it, no spoilers. The synopsis of the book is that there was a great war between the humans and the basilisks. The basilisks are snake people that can present themselves as humans. The humans won the war, and as part of the treaty, when the prince turns 20, the basilisks are hired to train. I think it's 13 women, or actually I think it might be just any women that are the same age as the prince. They train the women to be good at sex, and then there's a competition of who's the hottest, whatever, and then by the end the prince picks his future wife. And that is the premise of the book. The women go under a cave, and there's basilisk people there that are human looking, but then can also be snakes. And they train these women to be good at sex. And that is the basic premise of this book. It follows a girl named Temperance. She goes by Tem. And she's one of the women that's the prince's age and gets selected or gets to be part of the competition. That is the premise of the book. So that is the spoiler-free portion of this. If you haven't read it and you want to and you don't want spoilers, I would click away from this video now. Although, to be honest with you, it's not a heavy plot line. So if you're reading it for the plot, okay, you can, but I wouldn't. Okay, let's get into my opinions of the book. So Temperance is the female main character. The main male character is a guy named Caspian. He's the prince of the basilisks, and the prince, human prince, his name's Leo. His full name is like Felonius or something like that. So okay. So starting with it, I have notes. First, I think one of my favorite parts of the book is when she's trying to give him the good like the full slob job. She's like, I can't do it, it's too big, and he goes, I think you can do anything you put your mind to. And I was like, that's not how gag reflexes work, sir. Like, he's like, I know I'm super big, but I believe in you. And she's like, you got it. Like, it was such a corny, like, pep talk. I was like, okay, yeah, man. Yeah, you know what? Okay, that's one way to do it. And she does, by the way. She's like, oh, I can do anything I put my mind to. Hot. And then, and then they have this weird thing. I have to say, the author has to have a cum fetish. Like, she has to. There's multiple parts where there's like into their own hand. Like, they're very obsessed with holding their own man liquid. Like, why? Like, and it's not even the same characters, because you'd think, oh, okay, well, it's one character. No, it's like multiple characters multiple times in this book. They have a thing about holding it. I was like, listen, lady, I know you got a fetish. I know it. So there's that. The first time she swallows, I wrote down the quote because I thought it was insane. For the first time she tasted all of him, his cum flowed down her throat like liquid gold. Listen, I've never swallowed because I'm a straight dude, but I'm going to guess does not taste like liquid gold. I mean, maybe Basilisk splooge tastes better. Maybe. I don't know. Speaking of splooge, the claw. Okay, if you didn't read the book and you're not going to, he finishes in his hand, as I mentioned, and then he turns that into a claw that's basically a human. It's a claw, and then she puts it inside of her, and then it becomes basically it's like a fantasy version of a remote vibrator, but fantasy. Like, he can make it pulse and make her finish throughout the day if he thinks about her, which is all the time, because so she's just like randomly in church, like, ugh, like all the time. Yeah. So, and when you just think, I mean, and when you think there's not going to be any more, like, she intertwined the plot with sex so much, it's insane. Like, cresting is described in the beginning as a forceful orgasm from the basilisk that can create a control from the basilisk to, like, makes the basilisk be able to control the humans. If a basilisk crests another basilisk, they die. So basically, they come so hard they die. It is the most ridiculous thing, and it's a major part of the plot. And people get crested repeatedly. And then if a basilisk spits out their venom and a person or other basilisk swallows it, they can't be crested because they've been claimed, which is a different thing. I thought that was insane. Also, the basilisk hierarchy is dependent on how good you are at sex. By the way, nothing else. That's how Caspian's dad becomes the head basilisk. Apparently, it's just because he's got he's just swanging. And I don't know if that's the only requirement, by the way, like, if it's size and skill, and how do you measure that? Like, they didn't really go into that part of how do you measure that, right? Is it just like a skill thing, and like who puts in charge? Like, that makes no sense. The other thing I don't understand, I'm going way off track. I don't know how the humans beat the basilisk, because in the beginning you find out they're like, oh, we figured out that if the basilisk look at themselves in their own form, it turns them to stone, because basilisks turn humans to stone if they see them. But so they use shields that are mirrors. But then she mentions early on in the story that basilisks in human forms are still extremely strong and don't turn to stone for the mirrors, so they could just pick and choose. I don't understand how they won the war. Like, I legitimately don't. And they don't explain it either. Like, there's a point where she points out an obvious invulnerability in the plan that the humans used to beat the basilisk, and then just doesn't touch on it again for the rest of the book. So I didn't understand that. But okay, so we're getting past it. So I don't know that part. I don't understand. Another note I had is the ceremony. So if you're going to read this book, or if you haven't read this book, let's discuss the ceremony. So Caspian, the super possessive basilisk, is like, hey, for you to be accepted to marry me, you have to bang my dad in front of everybody and make him finish. And if he doesn't finish, then you get shunned by the basilisk kind. And she goes, okay. She goes, and she does it. And then the next part of the ceremony is that she has to bang Caspian for like 4 straight hours until midnight, and he breaks her pelvis doing that, which, by the way, insane that happens. But that's not the insane part to me. The insane part is that that's what happens first. Like, what is her lady parts made of that didn't tear first? Like, the fact that her bones broke first and there wasn't some major tearing down there first, like, I don't, the anatomy part is very confusing, and I don't understand that. And then there's like a part where, okay, so we're on that. We're on to major spoilers. So then you get to the later part, and she's part basilisk, but they didn't. I think the point of a good twist is that there have been like breadcrumbs throughout the whole book, and you're like, okay, I can kind of see that. There's no breadcrumbs that she might be part basilisk. If there is, I missed it. It could be because all of the snake sex that I that I didn't notice that. So it could be that, but I don't think so. I think she was just like, and now she's part basilisk, and you're like, wait, what? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that she can hear the voices, but you just assume that they all can do that. They don't mention that it's just a basilisk thing. So I'm like, okay. I just feel like it was very out of the blue. And also it was like 3/4 of the way, maybe not 3/4, but it was more than half of the way through the book. So I don't know. It just felt like a weird late reveal that, I don't know. Okay. She's part basilisk. Okay. And then also at the Basilisk Council meeting, they literally control. So Caspian uses Tem to control the other groups by turning them on, with them watching her be like a full, like a razzle dazzle finger thing. And I'm like, what is so special about Tem? I don't get that part. Like, I get that is she that beautiful? Like, I don't get why her is because she's a human, but then they kind of look down on him. That part made no sense to me. Like, sex controls everything in the Basilisk world, which is nuts in its own right. But then the fact that they're like, we hate her, but when he's like, he does the whole finger thing, they're like, ooh. And then he bangs her in front of the rest of the council, and they're all like, we don't agree with her decision. He's like, really? Watch me drop her right on me, and then drops her, and then just brr. And then they're like, now we agree with your decision. And I'm like, what? We are very easily swayed by horniness at this council. And then and then after, there's a kiss. So he's like, to show respect from the council, they all kiss you. And she's like, ew, gross. And he was like, not on your face. And she's like, oh. And then they all kiss her on her downstairs. And I'm like, okay. And then Caspian's rival sits there longer until she finishes. And then he finishes out of shame. It was such a wild ride. And also, that was insane. And then I didn't understand that. And then the plan about they're all going to be turned so she's going to crest the entire council because hybrids can do that, because hybrids are more powerful. That seemed kind of random. They didn't really mention that hybrids are more powerful until all of a sudden it was relevant at the council meeting, but I feel like that would have been brought up sooner. And then that happened, and then that eventually doesn't happen at all. She crests herself, which no one mentioned could be possible. And, like, it just seems super random. So then, and also, okay, so that's the main premise. And then the end is that, the King Basilisk, which I'm blanking on his name, he betrays her and his son, and then Caspian kills him, right? Okay, that's the book. And then Leo, the prince, goes and finds his ex-girlfriend, the king sent away, in the town right next door, which also feels interesting. And that's what I'm going to assume is going to be the next book. So I have questions on top of that. Now that we're done, and this is my last. So a bunch of things. First off, how did they turn their blood into gold? They don't even mention that, and the fact that they there's no mention of how that works. Like, there's their process. They have like a machine that like takes the blood from them, but then does it just solidify? And like, I didn't understand that at all. And then also, if she had just done what the original plan was, none of this would have happened, and she would have just lived with the prince. I just want to point that out. Like, if she hadn't fallen in love with Caspian, right, and had just been herself, because the prince liked her not for her like sexual skill sets, like what the premise of the book is, but because she is like rebellious and different than the other girls. So if she had just gone along with the process, he would have picked her without question because he liked her personality. They would have lived happily ever after. The king would have told the prince about how they're keeping basilisks in the dungeon or the dungeons of the castle. And even if the prince at the time was like, "Oh, okay," she would never let that go. And she would convince the Leo, who seems like a genuinely good person, that this is a bad thing, and they would let them go. And the basilisk would be happy, and the humans would be happy, and this entire situation could have been avoided in its entirety. Like, none of this everything would have been better if she had just married the prince. I don't see a single part of this that I don't see a part of this where there was a bad downfall. Maybe the only thing you could argue is that Leo still had feelings for his ex-girlfriend that was in a town over, and eventually that would have caused problems. But he's 20 years old. He could have gotten over it. I mean, how old was he when she even, like 18? Did they mention how old she was? I don't know. But anyways, yes, that's my thoughts on Kiss of the Basilisk. Did I think it was a good book? I think if you go in being like, I want to read a bunch of snake smut, then yeah, it was a great book. It's well-written smut. And I think even with how much it is, I'm never like, oh, this is repetitive. Somehow, at 22-ish hours of smut, it feels like, it didn't feel repetitive, which I will say, crazy impressive. Like, I write smut, like, for a job. I could not write the same plot line smut for 22 straight hours. There's no way. No, there would be repetitive motions or terms or something. But for the most part, it is a new idea every single time, and it's a lot. So, is it a good book? It's not a good story book, but it's a good book if you want what exactly it sounds like it's going to be. So, I think I would rate it pretty high. Like you got to take it as what it's intentioned. So, those are my thoughts. This turned into a 17-minute video. That's almost as much plot as there's in this book. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. There's more. But, yeah. So, yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because I'm going to just try to do this every time I finish a book. Just sit down and do a one-take thoughts of that book with the notes I have. All right. Peace out.